I hope you're all getting through the time change okay. John's sketchbook, and I thought today talk about he who doesn't sin casts the first stone. So that's an important story, event that happened to Jesus. John 8:1. Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Mount of Olives. Now early in the morning he came to the temple, and all the people came to him. So there's Jesus early in the morning going to the temple. People came to him. And he sat down and taught them. So there's Jesus sitting down to teach the people. Then the scribes and Pharisees, the religious leaders, brought to him a woman caught in adultery. And adultery is she was married and slept with another man, or she slept with a married man. So they dragged her in, brought her in. So Jesus, here's this sinful woman. And when they had set her in their midst, they put her in the middle of everybody. They said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act." So she's kind of shamed and crying. Look at her. Well, I don't know what they did exactly, but they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act." Now Moses in the law commanded as such that such should be stoned. In the law, Moses said, "Stone such women." But what do you say? So, Jesus, what do you say we do to her? Do we stone her? What? This they said, testing him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. So they had a little trap for him, test. Maybe he will say something wrong and we can trap him. This they said, testing him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. What is Jesus going to do? But Jesus stooped down and wrote on the ground as though he didn't hear. He seems to be ignoring them. Did Jesus hear the Pharisees and scribes, the legalistic religious leaders? So when they continued asking him, "Jesus, we asked, what do you say about this woman?" Jesus writing on the ground. Let me read that again. This they said, testing him, that they might have something of which to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down, leaned over, and wrote on the ground as though he didn't hear. So when they continued asking him, he raised himself up. Jesus stood up and said to them, "He who is without sin among you, who has no sin, let him throw a stone at her first." He who has no sin can be first to throw a stone. So who's going to throw the first stone who has no sin? He raised himself up and said to them, "He who is without sin among you, let him throw a stone at her first." And again he stooped down, leaned over, and wrote on the ground with his finger. Jesus bent down again and wrote with his finger. What did he write? I don't know. Then those who heard it, being convicted by their consciences, those who heard Jesus' words and were convicted by what was right and what was wrong. So your conscience is that in your brain, it tells you what is right and what is wrong. So they were convicted by their consciences. Sorry, I have kind of congested with allergies today. Convicted by their consciences, went out one by one, beginning with the oldest even to the last. The oldest left first, and one by one they left. So let's read that again. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger. Then those who heard it, being convicted by their consciences, went out one by one, beginning with the oldest even to the last. So they slowly left. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. Just Jesus and the woman were left in the court area. So I don't know if he's standing over, if he was over here, or I would love to see that. When Jesus had raised himself up, Jesus stood up and saw no one but the woman. So Jesus stood up and saw no one but the woman. He said to her, Woman, where are your accusers? Where is everybody? Where are your judges? Judges. Where are your judges? And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus had raised himself up and saw no one but the woman, he said to her, Woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said to her, Neither do I condemn you. No condemnation. Go and sin no more. No more sin. Go and sin no more. Let's read that one more time. Has no one condemned you? She said, Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said to her, Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more.